Mr. Hayes, if everything is in order, you can sign here. The lawyer, sitting across from me, adjusted his thin, gold-rimmed glasses and slid the divorce papers in my direction. His smile was professional, but there was something off about it. It was the kind of smile you give when you're trying a little too hard to remain detached. I could feel the tension creeping up on me as I looked at the papers. I'm Ethan Hayes, and I'm a dimension hopper. 3 days ago, I was sitting in my shabby little apartment, eating ramen, and reading a trashy billionaire romance novel called The CEO's Reluctant Bride. Next thing I knew, I woke up as the book's pathetic, doomed character, Ethan, the disposable husband of the Ice Queen CEO Victoria Sterling. In the book, this Ethan was everything you'd expect. Good-looking but useless, living off his wife's fortune while trying to cheat on her at every opportunity. By the 3rd chapter, he gets a hefty divorce settlement, signs these exact papers, and walks away free. Then, a few days later, he gets taken out in a convenient car crash, arranged by the novel's hero, Damen Blackwood, clearing the way for the perfect romance. And here I was, sitting at the same damn table, about to sign away my life just like the character I'd become. I was ecstatic. Forget all the drama, forget the humiliation, just sign the papers, get my 10 million, and disappear. It was the perfect escape. With that kind of cash, I could leave New York, find somewhere quiet to live, buy a house, a car, and live out my days in peace. It was my ticket out of this train wreck of a story. Then Victoria's voice sliced through my thoughts. I looked up, and there she was. Victoria Sterling, tall, cold, and effortlessly commanding in her perfectly tailored black suit. Her hair was pulled back in a tight, severe bun, exposing the graceful line of her neck. Her face, usually set in that emotionless mask of a CEO, held an air of detachment, like she was reviewing a quarterly financial report. The Ice Queen herself, straight out of the novel. "What are you staring at?" she said, her voice as sharp as ever. "Sign the damn papers so I can get on with my life." I swallowed hard, trying to brush off the strange knot in my stomach. I picked up the fountain pen, ready to do what I was supposed to do, just sign. But Victoria didn't break her gaze. She just stood there watching me, silent. The tension in the room grew thick. The lawyer and his assistant exchanged nervous glances, sensing something was off. I couldn't make sense of it. Why wasn't she rushing me to sign? Was she reconsidering this whole thing? Confused, I cleared my throat, trying to channel the original Ethan's arrogant, lazy attitude. "What's the holdup? You're the one who wanted this divorce. Let's get it over with." I flicked my wrist, bringing the pen to the paper. That's when it happened. Her hand shot out, grabbing mine with an almost painful grip. It wasn't a gentle touch, it was a vice holding me in place. I froze, staring at her. Her usual icy, unflappable demeanor was gone. In its place was something I couldn't quite read, something raw, something unfamiliar, pain, regret, fear. Yes, fear. It didn't make sense. "Victoria Sterling, afraid?" "Impossible." "Victoria, what are you doing?" I asked, trying to pull my hand free, but her grip was unyielding. She didn't answer. Her other hand reached for the pen, and I assumed she was just going to sign first. Instead, she broke the pen in two with a sharp snap. Ink splattered everywhere, staining the papers. The lawyer's glasses almost slid off his face. His assistant was staring, wide-eyed, like she'd just seen a ghost. And me, I was lost. My mind was blank, short-circuiting with just one word flashing across it. Why? This wasn't supposed to happen. According to the book, she was supposed to want this divorce. Couldn't wait to get rid of me. So why did she just destroy the papers? "This meeting is over," Victoria said, her voice as cold as ever, but I could hear the faintest tremor. She dropped the broken pen halves on the table, turned on her heel, and walked out of the room without another word. At the door, she stopped. She didn't look back at the lawyer or her assistant, just at me. "Ethan, come home with me." The way she said it, it wasn't a question, it was an order. A command. She turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor, leaving me there, staring at the ink-stained divorce papers and the shattered pen, completely bewildered. Home? What home? My dream of 10 million and a quiet life, was it all gone? Victoria Sterling, the woman who'd been so distant in the novel, who had barely acknowledged me, was now acting like she cared. I had no idea what was going on, but I had a sinking feeling that I was in deeper than I'd ever imagined. I was escorted back to the penthouse by her security team. Technically, it was our home, but we'd kept to our separate floors ever since we got married. The first floor was mine, the second hers. We barely saw each other, and I could count the number of times we'd actually interacted on one hand. When I walked in, Victoria's assistant, Ashley, appeared, followed by a team of movers. "Mr. Hayes," Ashley said with a slight bow. She looked a little puzzled, but there was also pity in her eyes. "Ms. Sterling has instructed us to change your room." "Change my room?" I repeated, taken aback. "There's no need for that. I'm fine on the first floor." Before I could protest further, the movers were already hauling things into my small guest room. A brand new Alienware gaming PC, a triple monitor setup, a top-of-the-line ergonomic chair, a PS5, an Xbox Series X, and a mountain of games. And a massive display case filled with statues and models I didn't recognize, but which looked ridiculously expensive. In less than 30 minutes, my sparse, boring room had been transformed into what could only be described as the ultimate man cave, like something out of a dream. Ashley looked at me, her expression a mix of confusion and pity. "Ms. Sterling felt your previous accommodations were inadequate," she explained. "She said that a man should have his own hobbies." I was speechless, staring at the new room in disbelief. "Inadequate hobbies?" I muttered under my breath. Was this a joke? In the book, she'd lectured me for spending $5,000 on a watch. She had hated the idea of me being lazy and unambitious. But here she was, turning my old room into this paradise? As I tried to process the madness, Victoria came down the stairs. She had changed out of her power suit and into silk pajamas, which softened her usual sharpness and gave her a more feminine look. But her face remained impassive, like a stone wall. She walked up to me, her heels clicking softly on the floor, and handed me a sleek black card. "What's this?" I asked automatically. "A Centurion card," she replied. Her tone was clipped. "I know it's a black card. I'm asking why you're giving it to me." "No limit," she added, almost like she was reading my thoughts. "The pin is your birthday." My heart skipped a beat, not because of the card, but because she actually knew my birthday. I shook my head, refusing without thinking. "I don't need it." Victoria frowned, clearly confused. She studied me for a moment before, with a determined look, she pressed the card into my palm. "Take it," she said firmly, her voice soft but insistent. "You deserve it." I froze, still gripping the card like it was a grenade. "I deserve it? For what?" Then she said something that knocked me sideways. "Starting tomorrow, you'll be coming to work with me at my company." I blinked. "What? But what would I even do there?" "You'll be vice director of special projects," she stated, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. My brain was screaming. Special projects? I'm a college dropout. What could I possibly do there? "You don't have to do anything," she added, her tone flat. "Just show up. Clock out on time. Collect your salary." I was dumbfounded. A gaming room, an unlimited credit card, and now a no-show job with a fancy title? This wasn't just a golden parachute, it was a full-on reinvention. But why? What did she want from me? What was going on? Parachute. She was trying to bury me alive with money. Victoria Sterling, what in God's name are you planning? Looking at her ice-cold face, I felt a genuine chill run down my spine for the first time. This woman was far more terrifying than the book ever let on. In the end, I couldn't win against Victoria. The next morning, a chauffeur drove me to the Sterling Corporation headquarters, a towering skyscraper that scraped the clouds. It was impressive, intimidating, the kind of building that made you feel small just standing in front of it. Ashley led me through the building with what seemed like top-level clearance, right up to the executive floor, Victoria's exclusive domain. The so-called Special Projects Division was an office right next to the CEO's suite. It was as big as my new game room in the penthouse, complete with a desk, sofa, mini fridge, espresso machine, and even a small wet bar. "Mr. Hayes, your job is to be here," Ashley said, her expression carefully neutral. "Ms. Sterling said if you need anything, you can speak to her directly." I finally got it. This wasn't a job. This was a gilded cage. She was keeping me under her thumb, right where she could see me. I spun around in the plush executive chair, which was more comfortable than the bed in my old apartment. Fine by me. I'd get paid to do nothing. I could coast here until she got tired of this game and finally agreed to the divorce. Just then, the office door opened. A handsome, distinguished-looking man walked in. He wore a perfectly tailored Armani suit, a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, and a smile that was just the right amount of charming. I recognized him instantly. Damon Blackwood, the protagonist of the novel, a classic alpha male hero. From the moment he appeared in the story, He began aggressively pursuing Victoria, and today was the day of their first significant interaction in the book. According to the plot, Daman was here to discuss a business partnership with Victoria. During his visit, he would accidentally run into the original Ethan, who would be lazing around the office. Daman would then verbally humiliate him, highlighting his own superiority and making Victoria even more disgusted with her useless husband. "Hello, I'm here to see Ms. Sterling," Daman said, his eyes sweeping over me with a barely concealed flicker of contempt. "Here we go, showtime." I yawned and lazily pointed to the office next door. Her office. Knock yourself out. Daman's brow furrowed slightly, clearly annoyed by my disrespectful attitude for a supposed junior employee, but he maintained his composure, gave a curt nod, and walked toward Victoria's office. I perked up my ears, ready for the drama. A few minutes later, Daman and Victoria emerged together. It looked like they were heading to some sort of event. This also matched the book. Tonight's business gala was the first minor climax of the story. At the party, the original Ethan, jealous of Damien and Victoria's rapport, would get belligerently drunk, make a huge scene, and utterly humiliate Victoria. Daman would then step in, playing the gallant hero by dragging the drunken lot away while gently comforting Victoria, earning him his first brownie points with the Ice Queen. My plan was simple. I wasn't going to that party under any circumstances. If I wasn't there, the plot couldn't happen. "I have a gala tonight," Victoria began, walking over to me. She hesitated as if unsure of what to say. "I'm not going," I cut her off immediately, shaking my head like a bobblehead. "Not my scene. I'd rather go home and play video games." Victoria stared at me, silent. Beside her, a small smirk played on Daman's lips. He smoothly interjected. "Victoria, if Mr. Hayes isn't comfortable in these kinds of settings, you shouldn't force him. I'll be there to accompany you." The look in his eyes was a condescending cocktail of disdain for me and possessiveness for Victoria. I sneered internally. "Keep acting, buddy." Normally, hearing my completely unambitious response and with the perfect gentleman Daman by her side, Victoria should have been more than happy to leave me behind. Instead, she shot Daman a cold glare before turning her gaze back to me. "No," she said, voice firm. "You have to come with me." "Why?" I asked, bewildered. "It's not safe for you to be out alone," she said cryptically. Then, before I could protest, she grabbed my wrist and started pulling me toward the exit. Her strength was still surprising. I stumbled, practically being dragged into the elevator. Daman was left frozen in place, the charming smile stuck on his face. He'd probably never encountered a woman who so thoroughly ignored the social script. The elevator doors slid shut, cutting off the sight of his stunned expression. I looked down at the hand holding mine. Her palm was cool, but her grip was tight. "Victoria, what is going on?" I couldn't help but ask. "The gala will be crowded and chaotic," she said, staring at her own tense reflection in the polished steel walls of the elevator. "Stay close to me and don't drink anything." I was even more confused. No drinking? How was the plot supposed to unfold? The ballroom was a sea of glittering chandeliers and couture gowns. As expected, Daman wasted no time in finding us, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Mr. Hayes, my apologies if I was rude earlier at the office. Allow me to offer a toast as an apology," he said, his smile as slick as a fox's. He offered one of the glasses to me. I glanced at it and noticed the bubbles looked off. It didn't take a genius to figure out it was drugged. Sleeping pills, maybe something worse, all designed to make me cause a scene. I was trying to think of a polite way to refuse when a hand intercepted the glass. It was Victoria. Before either of us could react, she took the glass meant for me and downed it in one go. Then she picked up the second glass, his, and drank that one too. The entire motion was fluid and shockingly fast. After finishing, she placed the 2 empty flutes on a passing waiter's tray with a sharp clink. Then she looked Daman dead in the eye and said 4 words. "He doesn't drink." Her posture was like that of a lioness protecting her cub, fierce and territorial. A muscle twitched in Daman's jaw. He looked so awkward he could have drilled a hole in the floor with his embarrassment. As for me, I was just staring, completely floored. That was the most badass thing I had ever seen. Seeing the look of utter humiliation on Daman's face, I felt a strange and unexpected surge of satisfaction. At the same time, a much larger question loomed in my mind. "Victoria, why are you protecting me like this?" She didn't seem to hate me like she did in the book. On the contrary, she was defending me at every turn, even at the cost of offending the story's hero. The ride back in the car was quiet. The chauffeur drove smoothly as Victoria and I sat in the back, a careful foot of space between us. I could smell the faint scent of champagne on her, mingled with her usual balsam fir perfume. It created a strange, calming aroma. She seemed a little drunk. She was leaning against the seat with her eyes closed, her long eyelashes casting soft shadows on her cheeks. I studied her profile discreetly. This was the first time I had ever looked at her this closely. The shifting city lights outside made her skin look almost translucent. Her lips were a pale natural pink. Without that formidable, unapproachable aura, she was objectively a breathtakingly beautiful woman. "Don't," she suddenly whispered, her brow furrowing as if she were trapped in a nightmare. "Don't go." My interest piqued. I leaned in slightly, trying to hear what she was saying. "Don't go," she repeated, her voice thick with something that sounded like a sob. "That car! It's going to explode!" My body went rigid. "Car! Explode?" Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning, cutting through the fog of my confusion. Late in the novel, to completely eliminate his rivals, Dahman sets up an elaborate scheme. He tricks the Harrison family, Victoria's main business rivals, into thinking they can ruin Sterling Corp with a major construction project. In reality, it's a trap designed to lure Victoria to the construction site, where he plans to stage an accidental explosion. Of course, at the last minute, Dahman swoops in like a knight in shining armor to save her. That event was a major turning point in the latter half of the book, the moment that solidified the main couple's bond. But no one else could possibly know about it. But Victoria, how could she? "And don't trust the Harrisons," she murmured in her sleep, her fingers clutching the fabric of her dress so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Their project, it's a trap. It'll get you killed." A cold sweat broke out across my back. She knew about the explosion, and she knew the Harrison project was a trap. This was beyond coincidence. My heart hammered against my ribs. A ridiculous, impossible theory began to form in the back of my mind. Could it be? Could she possibly be? I lunged forward and grabbed her by the shoulders, shaking her awake. "Victoria, wake up." Her eyes fluttered open, still hazy with sleep. The dim light inside the car obscured her expression. "What's going on with the Harrison construction project?" I demanded, staring straight into her eyes. Her pupils contracted in the darkness. "How do you know about that?" She shot back, her voice instantly reverting to its sober, icy tone. "You answer me first." I pressed. She fell silent. The car was dead quiet. The only sound was our increasingly ragged breaths. After a long moment, she finally spoke again, her voice low and hoarse. "Stay away from Dahman Blackwood," she said. Instead of answering my question, she grabbed my arm, her grip so tight it felt like her fingers were digging into my bones. "He's dangerous." My heart sank. She didn't just know the plot. She knew Dahman was the villain. That realization hit me like a sledgehammer. I looked at this woman, at her eyes that were usually as cold and deep as a frozen lake. Right now, they clearly reflected my own shocked face along with an emotion I had never seen in her before. A raw, overflowing panic and despair. A crazy idea, one I could no longer suppress, took hold of my mind. I was a transmigrator. I knew the story because I had read it. But she also knew the story, and her every action was colored with regret for the past and terror of the future. If I was an actor who had been handed the script, then she was an actor who had already performed the play once, screwed it up so badly, and was now being forced by the director to do it all over again. She was a regressor, reborn. The conclusion made my blood run cold. I stared at Victoria, feeling like I was looking at something not entirely human. No wonder she wouldn't sign the divorce papers. No wonder she was throwing money at me and keeping me glued to her side. No wonder she took a drugged drink from me and went out of her way to antagonize Dahman. Because in her previous life, her disposable starter husband died shortly after their divorce. She wasn't trying to trap me. She was trying to save me in her own clumsy, domineering, and frankly terrifying way. Oh my God. I let go of her shoulders and slumped back against the seat. My mind was racing. This wasn't the story I thought it was anymore. Not by a long shot. My entire worldview turned upside down. What kind of mess had I gotten myself into? A guy who had read the book and a woman who had lived it, stuck together in a marriage of convenience. How are we supposed to navigate this? And more importantly, if she was reborn, what did she actually feel for me? Guilt, a need to atone? I couldn't let myself think about it. All I knew was that from this moment on, the woman named Victoria Sterling was no longer just a one-dimensional character from a bad novel. She was a mystery, a life or death mystery I had to solve. In the days that followed, a strange, unspoken understanding formed between Victoria and me. I stopped trying to figure out how to escape and started observing her every move like a spectator. She, in turn, maintained her icy facade, arranging for a driver to take me to and from work every day, and having her assistant deliver all sorts of expensive toys, from limited edition sneakers to high-end fishing rods, as if terrified that a moment of boredom might lead me to do something reckless. I knew she was protecting me in her own way, isolating me from all potential danger. For my part, I needed to confirm my theory. One afternoon, I happened to see a copy of the Wall Street Journal on her desk. I picked it up, feigning casual interest, and pointed to an article about a new virtual reality technology. "This Novatech company sounds interesting," I said, as if talking to myself. "Too bad it's just a small startup. Probably won't go anywhere." I watched her reaction from the corner of my eye. Novatech was a minor player in the original novel. Mid-story, the company developed a revolutionary piece of tech, and its stock price skyrocketed hundreds of times overnight, creating a modern-day legend in the financial world. It was by getting in on the ground floor with this company that Damon Blackwood made his first massive fortune. If Victoria was truly reborn, there was no way she would let that opportunity slip by. Her expression didn't change. She just gave a non-committal hum and went back to signing her documents. I felt a pang of disappointment. Had I been wrong? But just as I was about to leave her office, I heard her pick up the internal phone and speak to Ashley in that same flat, emotionless tone. "Inform the investment division, liquidate all available assets, and at any cost buy up every share of Novatech you can get." "That's right, all of it." I froze mid-stride, the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. She took the bait. She knew. The realization sent my heart into overdrive, a mix of excitement and anxiety flooding through me. I wasn't alone in this. I had another player on my side, a much more powerful one. Even if she didn't know I was a player too. A brilliant plan began to form in my mind. That evening, back at the penthouse, I broke my routine. Instead of heading straight to my game room, I waited for her on the living room sofa. When Victoria came home, she was visibly surprised to see me there. "Is something wrong?" she asked, kicking off her heels, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "We need to talk," I said, patting the cushion next to me. She hesitated for a moment before sitting down, keeping a careful 2 feet of distance between us. "Victoria," I began, getting straight to the point. "Can you see the future?" I didn't use the word reborn. It was too shocking. Seeing the future was a gentler way to probe. Her body instantly went rigid like a startled cat. She didn't confirm or deny it, just stared at me with those deep, unreadable eyes, her gaze full of suspicion. "What are you trying to say?" "I'm trying to say we should work together," I said, looking her directly in the eye. "I know things you don't, and you know things I don't. Instead of circling each other like this, we should team up." Her frown deepened. "I don't understand what you mean." "You will," I said with a small smile, playing my first card. "For instance, at the Cityland auction next week in the South Bronx. Damon's real target isn't the commercial plot everyone is talking about. It's the unremarkable industrial plot right next to it. He's going to use a shell company called Apex Holdings to bid on it. Because beneath that land, he's already confirmed there's a massive deposit of rare earth minerals. This was another one of Damon's major schemes from the book. He deliberately spread rumors that he was going after the commercial land to distract everyone. While his real prize was the mineral rights worth a fortune. In her past life, Victoria had been misled by him and missed the opportunity, allowing Damon to consolidate even more power. After I said my piece, I watched her face intently. I saw her pupils contract sharply, her hands resting on her lap, clenched into tight fists. Her memories of the past life definitely didn't include details this specific. This was my advantage. As the reader, I knew all the behind-the-scenes details. She started as if to ask how I knew, but then she caught herself. "Don't worry about how I know," I interrupted. "You just need to know that I'm not your enemy. My goal is the same as yours. To make Damon Blackwood and anyone else who tries to bring down your family pay for it." Of course, the part I didn't say out loud was, "and then I can finally take my settlement and live a quiet life." Victoria was silent for a long time. So long that I thought she was going to refuse. Finally, she gave a single sharp nod. "Okay," was all she said. But that one word signified the official start of our unspoken alliance. A transmigrator and a regressor. 2 people with 2 different versions of the script, united by a common enemy. I looked at her tense profile and thought maybe this stupid book world was about to get interesting. After all, from the very beginning, our alliance had been a strange comedy of secrets. We never spoke of things like transmigration or rebirth. Instead, we communicated in a kind of code that would have been meaningless to anyone else. For example, I might casually remark, "Man, nice weather today, too bad. I heard Prosperity Group is about to get hit with a financial fraud scandal next week. Their stock's going to tank." Victoria would just give a deadpan, "Oh," then silently pick up her phone and text her, "Traders to short the hell out of Prosperity Group." Or she might hand me a file with information on someone I'd never seen before and say, "This person is a problem. Stay away from him." I would then know that he was likely a spy planted by Damien or someone who would betray her in the future. We operated like a pair of Cold War spies, using our secret knowledge to crush the competition in the market. Just 3 days after we bought into Novatech, the company announced a technological breakthrough. The stock went ballistic, adding tens of billions to Sterling Corporation's bottom line overnight. The board members started looking at me differently, as if I were some kind of financial oracle. In reality, I was just the messenger. Victoria was the one who executed every move. Her business acumen and sheer nerve were beyond anything I could have imagined. Once she had a target, she moved like a precision-guided missile. Fast, direct, and devastatingly effective. Our first major joint operation was the South Bronx land auction. "You're sure Damien will use a company called Apex Holdings?" Victoria asked the night before, triple-checking the details. "Positive," I confirmed. "And to raise the capital, he's already leveraged 3 of his most profitable ongoing projects. He's betting everything on this." "Good," Victoria said, a cold glint in her eye. In that moment, I saw the true Ice Queen CEO, the absolute power and confidence of someone who was always in control. The next day at the auction, Damien was seated not far from us, a smug, self-assured look on his face. When the bidding for the seemingly worthless industrial plot began, the room was silent. Then a small unknown company, Apex Holdings, placed a bid. Our own shell company, equally obscure, immediately countered. The price climbed from a starting bid of 50 million, 60 million, 70 million. Damien's expression started to shift. He clearly hadn't expected any real competition for this useless piece of land. When our shell company bid 100 million, Damien's side hesitated. I glanced at Victoria. She was sipping a cup of tea, looking completely unbothered, but the slight tightening of her jaw betrayed her own tension. 105 million, Apex's representative called out, his voice strained. That had to be Damien's limit. Our representative looked over at us for instructions. Victoria set down her teacup and gave him a nearly imperceptible signal to stop. 105 million going once. 105 million going twice. Bang! The auctioneer's gavel came down. Sold. Damien let out a long breath, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. He even shot a condescending look in our direction as if to say, "You can't compete with me." He had no idea that he had just spent over 100 million on a truly worthless piece of dirt, because I happened to remember a line in the book mentioning that the geological survey data for the rare earth minerals had been faked. Damon himself only found out he'd been scammed by his own expert after he bought the land. All I did was make the hole he dug for himself a little bit deeper. After the auction, as we were leaving, I said to Victoria, "That was brilliant, and I'm in it." For the first time, I wasn't just a passive observer of the plot. I had actively participated and landed a solid punch on Damien. The feeling was incredible. Victoria glanced at me, her expression as blank as ever, but the tips of her ears turned a faint shade of pink. "You deserve the credit," she said softly. It was the first time she had ever directly praised me. A warmth spread through my chest. I was about to say something else when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and a frantic voice on the other end said, "Is this Ethan Hayes?" "You need to get to Mount Sinai Hospital right away." "Your mother?" the voice continued. She fell down a flight of stairs. My mind went completely blank. My mother. In this world, I had a mother. When I got to the hospital, the light above the operating room was still on. A middle-aged woman, my aunt in this life, was sobbing on a bench in the hallway. Through her tearful accusations, I pieced together the story. The original Ethan's father had died young, and his mother had raised him by herself through incredible hardship. A year ago, when the Sterling family chose Ethan for the marriage of convenience with Victoria, they had paid a substantial sum of money. But that ungrateful bastard, after getting the money, didn't give a dime to his mother. Instead, he treated her like a burden, leaving her all alone in a rundown apartment in Queens and never visiting. Missing her son, The old woman had tried to take the subway into the city to see him today. She had slipped on the station steps and taken a bad fall. Listening to my aunt's curses, I felt a confusing mix of emotions. I wasn't the real Ethan, but the guilt and heartache that emanated from his body felt terrifyingly real. I leaned against the wall, feeling weak. Just then, the sharp clicking of heels echoed down the hallway. Victoria had arrived. She was followed by Ashley and several doctors who had the unmistakable air of top specialists. "What's the situation?" she asked, walking straight to me, her brow furrowed as she looked at the red light of the operating room. "They're still working on her," I said, my voice hollow. She gave me a quick glance, then turned to the doctor she brought. "Get in there. I don't care what it costs. You save her." The specialist nodded and immediately scrubbed in, disappearing into the operating room. I realized then that she had summoned the hospital's chief of staff and every department head. The moment she got the call, she came and stood beside me, saying nothing. Looking at her, I suddenly thought that for a woman who seemed so cold, her heart wasn't nearly as hard as she let on. Hours later, the light finally went off. The lead surgeon came out, pulling off his mask. "The surgery was a success. The patient is stable. It's a good thing she was brought in so quickly." Victoria's face softened just for a moment, but she quickly composed herself, her usual cold demeanor returning. Quickly, and even better than that, Ms. Sterling brought in the city's best neurosurgeon. Another half hour, and it would have been a different story. My knees buckled, and I nearly collapsed. A hand steadied me. It was Victoria. Her hand was as cool as ever, but it grounded me. "Thank you," I said, looking at her with genuine gratitude. She shook her head, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something. But in the end, she remained silent. My mother was moved to a VIP suite with 24-hour private nursing care. By the time Victoria had handled everything, it was late into the night. "Go home," she said to me. I shook my head. "I'm staying with her." "But you have to," Victoria started, but I cut her off, meeting her eyes. "She's my mom." Victoria fell silent. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine, I'll have Ashley bring you a change of clothes and some food." With that, she turned and left. As I watched her figure disappear down the hall, a strange feeling washed over me. This cold, one-dimensional character from the book was slowly becoming a real, complex person. She had her own principles, her own vulnerabilities, and her own kindness. I sat by my mother's bedside all night. The next morning, she woke up. When she saw me, tears immediately welled in her cloudy eyes. "Ethan, you came."
She tried to reach for me, but she was too weak.
I quickly took her hand, my heart aching. "Mom, I'm so sorry." Those 3 words were for the original Ethan and for myself. For the next few days, I put all my work at the company on hold and focused completely on taking care of my mother at the hospital. Victoria never once pressured me to come back. Instead, she had Ashley deliver freshly made soups and all kinds of nourishing foods every day, ensuring both my mother and I were well looked after. Under my care, my mother's recovery was swift. One day, when she was feeling much better, she held my hand and asked, "Ethan, are you and Victoria not getting along?" I was taken aback. "Mom, why would you ask that?" "I can see it," she said with a sigh. "That girl, she has a good heart. She's just not good at showing it. You're the man. You need to be more patient with her. It's not easy for a young woman like her to run such a huge company all by herself." Her words hit me. I had never considered that this was how my mother saw Victoria. "And this," my mother said, pulling an old savings account passbook from under her pillow and pressing it into my hand. "This is the money you gave me when you got married. I haven't touched a cent. Take it and buy Victoria something nice. Spoil her a little. There's nothing so bad between a husband and a wife that it can't be fixed." I looked down at the passbook. The balance was $100,000. It was a fraction of the money the Sterlings had paid, and the only money the original Ethan had ever given his mother. She hadn't spent any of it, saving it all for him. My eyes instantly burned. "Mom," I said, choking up. "Go on," she said, patting my hand. "Don't keep her waiting." Clutching the passbook, still warm from her touch, I walked out of the room. Victoria was standing at the end of the hall as if she had been waiting for me. She saw me and walked over. "How is she?" she began to ask. I didn't answer. I just held out the passbook to her. She froze, looking at me in confusion. "My mom told me to give this to you," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "She said, I should use it to buy you something you like to make you happy." Victoria's whole body shuddered. She stared at the passbook in my hand, then back at my face. and in her perpetually icy eyes, a layer of moisture rapidly began to form. I never thought I would see Victoria Sterling cry. She didn't sob or make a sound. The tears just started to fall, rolling down her perfect cheeks, drop by drop, splashing onto the passbook I held out. Each drop felt like it was landing directly on my heart. I panicked. I completely panicked. "Hey, don't cry," I stammered, awkwardly raising a hand to wipe her tears, then stopping midair, unsure if I should. Did I say something wrong?" She shook her head, trying to wipe her face with the back of her hand, but the tears only fell faster, like a broken string of pearls. She started, her voice choked with sobs. "I just never expected—" What did she never expect? That my mother would tell me to spoil her?
Or that I would actually tell her.
Seeing her so heartbroken, so vulnerable, and yet trying so hard to hold it all in, something deep inside me cracked open. I sighed, stuffed the passbook back in my pocket, and then gently pulled her into a hug. Her body was stiff like a block of ice, but slowly in my arms that ice began to melt. She buried her face in my shoulder, and the sob she had been suppressing for so long finally broke free. That night, I left my mother in the care of the private nurse and took Victoria back to the penthouse. Her eyes were red and swollen. We sat on the living room sofa, neither of us speaking first. After a long silence, I decided to break it. "Victoria," I said, looking at her, "can we talk about the last lifetime?" I had finally asked. Her body went rigid again. She looked up at me, her face a mask of disbelief. You know?" I nodded. "Ever since you started talking in your sleep in the car." The color drained from her face. "So, when I told you about the land auction, you were testing me." "Yes," I admitted. Her eyes dimmed, and a bitter, self-deprecating smile touched her lips. "Of course I've been acting so strangely. It makes sense you would be suspicious." "Can you tell me what happened?" I asked gently. "In the last life, why were you so afraid of me getting hurt?" It was the question that had been haunting me. She was silent. This silence was longer and heavier than any before. Just as I thought she wouldn't answer, she finally spoke, her voice raw and scraped. In the